Love that catchy little tune. Welcome to this episode of My Project Hell. I'm Kelly Shuffler, and today we're going to take you on our 20-minute trip into the project management zone, where we will do our part to keep things understandable and practical, and provide you with some useful information and tools to take away and apply to your own project management practice.
Thanks, Kelly. And I'm Paul Thompson. And in this episode, we're going to do our usual shtick with a hot topic, and then we'll go into Coach's Corner and do some live coaching. We encourage everyone to join in on the conversation, right? Use the chat, share your thoughts with everyone as we go through the episode. And if you do have anything for Kelly and I specifically, drop that in Q&A. All right. What do we got for the hot topic, Kelly?
Yeah, so before we head over into Coach's Corner with our guest PM, we do have a hot topic. And today, Paul and I thought we'd spend just a few minutes on talking about the often missed practice of defining roles and responsibilities in the project, and why defining those up front at the start of the project is the thing that's going to make your collaboration and your efficiency much easier than trying to muddle through a project without them. So when we talk about roles and responsibilities, we're talking about defining project team members' positions in the project and the function that they're going to be providing to support the project. This is part of the very important team structure that's going to bring a level of clarity and comfort to your team members. And it's really up to project managers to create this. And so, what was I going to say? I don't know, Paul. I lost my train of thought, but it's part of establishing trust with your team. When you've got this established roles and responsibilities, people know what to do and when. And so if you think about it, when you're coming into a team, or maybe you're coming into a group or a committee of some sort, some type of group setting where there's an objective to get something done, and roles and responsibilities are not discussed, everyone's just doing their own thing. They've got no structure and it's kind of chaos, right? There's confusion going on. Sure, you've got a leader, but the group or the team hasn't discussed what's going on and who's doing what. So what you get is misaligned team members, right? You get duplicated work, misunderstandings between team members and other conflict. And so when you've got that, you're missing that underlying structure, then you're going to get all the mayhem that ensues. So sometimes we just want to speed ahead and not do this step, but then we're missing this critical piece of team building with our teams because we tell ourselves a story, we don't have time for it. And then we wonder why our teams are stuck in that storming mode, right? Where there's all that inner team conflict and dysfunction. So Paul,
right.
When you think about roles and responsibilities, what's been your experience and what are some things you've found helpful in creating those?
Yeah, and as you said, right, you feel like you don't have time to do it, but you're going to have plenty of time to fix the problems that come up from not doing it. There's a couple of ways that you can do roles and responsibilities, right? And we've tried lots of them. They're certainly kind of at a higher level, right? If you have network engineers, server engineers, testers, those types of things, and you call out kind of what is the role of a tester and what are their responsibilities. That's one way to do it at a very high and a very generic level. And that's certainly step one, right? You want to make sure that if somebody's coming in as a tester, they understand what's expected, right? Because every QA group, every testing team has kind of their own perspective. So get with them and kind of organize it at that level. Where I've found a lot of success is taking it down another level, especially if you have a project that's more agile based, that's repetitive, that kind of goes through a lot of cycles of the same thing with different people, is a racing, right? What is the responsibility, accountability, consulting, and informed individuals? And what we'll often do is take the work breakdown structure and throw that into a spreadsheet, and then just across the top, all the various roles. And so for testing, the tester is responsible for executing tests. The project manager is accountable that they get done. The QA manager is consulted. The engineer is informed of any defects. So you really kind of go through that. And then it becomes very clear when you hand off a task what the expectations are without having everything in the schedule for nano size bytes in a schedule and trying to track all of that. That's what we found very, very useful, is really building that RACI and putting that with the roles and responsibilities.
Yeah, that's interesting you brought up the RACI. I'm working on a RACI right now with a project team I am working with, and it's really going to bring that clarity that they need to know who's responsible for what. And even taking a step back before doing the RACI, something that you can do to have the high level definitions of roles and responsibilities is get your team in a room and get those get the team perspective. It's really interesting when you put roles up, and you can do this with sticky notes, put the roles up and let the person who's in the role at that moment say what they think they're responsible for, and then compare that to what everyone else thinks they might be responsible for, and you're going to start to see gaps. That's something I found useful in the past. But then, what if you're coming into the project midstream? You need to really evaluate how the team's operating, and maybe roles and responsibilities weren't created up front and they've managed, but maybe they are stuck in that storming stage. You're definitely going to want to just pause for a minute with the team and establish some roles and responsibilities. So I just want to tell a story real quick.
Yeah.
All right. It's quick. I came into a project midstream once, and the work was underway, they were executing, and it was a mess. There were multiple people trying to do the same thing different ways. Deliverables were sitting there collecting dust. Productivity was sluggish, and the team was not supporting one another. And then when I realized, oh, hey, roles and responsibilities have never been established here, we use the process I just mentioned to reset, create a simple set of roles and responsibilities. And then that helped the team also talk through their different perspectives on what they were thinking. So I think the takeaway here is it's on the PM, really, to set the roles and responsibilities up and make sure that if there's any gaps, to identify those gaps and rebalance and bridge the gaps. Yeah, Paul and I both have roles and responsibility templates in our toolboxes on our websites.
That's right. And don't forget to throw in your project owner and the sponsor into your roles and responsibilities. Make sure they're clear. So take a look at the templates that are available. Kelly pointed out we have them on our websites. Give it a look. Also, if you have questions around roles and responsibilities and want to talk further, check with Kelly and I, set up a consulting session, and we're happy to chat with you for a while.
Definitely.
All right. Let's dive into Coach's Corner. Today we have Dina. She's a senior project manager at a local tech company, and she's really bringing forward a familiar but pretty complicated issue to the table that she wants to talk about. So Dina, welcome. How are you doing?
Dina,
I'm good, Paul. Hey, Kelly.
thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Actually, what you guys were talking about with the RACI, I was taking notes here and I said, well, maybe that's what was actually needed, was the next level of defining the goals and the responsibilities.
That's awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about the issue that you struggled with.
Yeah, the issue I struggled with this project was at the end of it, everyone was not happy. Where usually when you end a project, people are happy it's done. They're celebrating accomplishments, but no one was really happy. It just felt like, okay, we got through it, we got it done, but the leadership wasn't really acknowledging the success of the project. There was a lot of miscommunication around who was responsible and accountable for a lot of the things, just like you guys were talking about. And then really, it was just like, they didn't feel supported. And so I guess as the PM, it's like, okay, how how to remedy this or make this feel where they can feel accomplished and like the work they did was important, but knowing that there's a gap between what is seen versus the work that was done.
Okay, so it sounds like the team put in a lot of work, did some tough hours and everything, and then when it was all said and done, the project was sort of like, okay, we're done, move on.
Yep, that's
From
it.
a
Yep.
from a corporate
Successful. It was
perspective.
successful, but it was just like, okay, it's done. Check mark. Let's go.
Is that the corporate culture or was it a particular sponsor? Give us a little insight into some of the specifics there and what you did to kind of try to elevate their
Yeah,
account.
for this company when I worked for them, I didn't feel like it was the corporate culture, but maybe for this specific team, the securities team, it was different than the overall culture. It was just like maybe because of new leadership that had just come in, maybe because of the people that were brought in mid project, kind of like you mentioned, it just felt a little off.
Okay.
Okay.
And then you asked the
Can
question
you,
about how I try to remedy it by bringing everyone together and saying what can we celebrate, what did everyone think they did well, giving them their kudos, their acknowledgement, but sometimes no matter what, people still want to seek it from the people who it should matter to, which is your leadership and the people who called for the project to be done, because it was brought to us and not us brought to, we didn't ask for the project.
Well, certainly these days, the security team is well overworked and underappreciated. So I can appreciate that their group may not fit into the same culture of celebrate big wins because it seems like every time they turn around, there's somebody banging
Something
at the
else.
door, right?
Yeah.
All right. Kelly, what sort of thoughts do you have or additional
well,
questions?
yeah, thank you for sharing this, Dina. I think this is a real struggle for PMs. And one of the things I try to do is think about the end of the project at the beginning.
Mhm.
And that sounds counterintuitive sometimes, but if I don't start thinking about how can we celebrate success throughout the project and not just wait till the end, but try to build in some celebrations of some type at the different milestone levels, bringing different recognition. And as you said, the PM can only do so much because a team really is fed and watered through the recognition of leadership internally, right? So if you can get with your sponsor ahead of time and actually talk to them about how the team will be recognized and set that plan, have it be part of project planning and
Mhm.
set that up ahead of time to see what are you dealing with? Are you going to get any budget for these types of celebrations or recognitions? And if not, you got to get creative on that. I know another thing that a PM can do for recognizing, I like to send kudos emails to managers along the way. We're mostly working in cross-functional teams. And so when someone does something well, I make sure I send a quick note to their manager and recognize them. And that usually will have a downstream impact. That manager will recognize them internally and bring up their successes. So giving shout outs when something goes well. Paul, what are you?
Well, you nailed my big one, right? It's that email shout out to their manager. Because a couple of reasons. Think about it from the manager's perspective. Come review time, they're looking for anything to kind of pull out. And all of a sudden, you've given them a piece of information that's valuable. So they're happy with you doing that. They're happy that their people are doing well. And oftentimes, then we find that they'll have a little thank you or celebration informally, right, at their team meetings that functional manager is having. So that's Kelly's right there. That's probably the number one way to all along the path to keep things going. The other is also we've done, I'm assuming there's status reports involved in your project,
Of
right?
course, of course.
So little, two-line celebrations, that, hey, want to thank Tanya for going the extra mile and getting these test cases pulled together last minute and this piece done with the customer. Or, especially if you hear from like the internal business partner or the internal customer and they tell you somebody's doing a good job, put that on the status report, because those tend to, again, get circulated back around. I mean, you don't have to, like, it doesn't have to be neon sign, but just those. And even if nobody else in the company sees it or recognizes it, it makes that individual feel important, right? You recognize them, and that's going to go a long way for them pulling that extra, couple of hours you need from them. They want to support you because they know you have their back.
Right.
The last thing I would suggest, and we do this a lot of times with our big projects, and we're consultants, so we kind of have our own budget. So you may want to see if you get internal budget, but a $5 Starbucks coffee card goes miles. I cannot believe how far that goes, right? Hey, thanks for, X, Y, and Z. And you kind of have to have these as you spot it within a day and you reward it, right? This has to just be really quick and you're rewarding that specific thing. But, a handful of those over the project goes a long way as well. Because we've worked in a lot of organizations where they didn't celebrate, things. They just sort of made this assumption that, hey, this is their job. This is what they do. Why are we going to, have a party to celebrate what they should be doing anyway?
Right.
As a project manager, you recognize that, well, I have no authority. So it's all about convincing people to come on, go the extra mile for me.
Right.
So those are some of the thoughts that we have.
Yeah, I think that's why also treating it as a part of your planning, rewards, recognition, celebrating success, thinking about that at the beginning, and really start talking to your sponsors about, we need to do this. This is important. And then figuring out, okay, what's the scope of what kind of resources are you going to have, both, monetarily and the latitude to do any of these things that we've been talking about.
Yeah, I love what you guys shared, Paul and
about
Kelly.
it.
Especially you shared something that costs money and something that doesn't, which is the kudos and the emails. So it's not something can be done for sure, and I think that was missed for sure was when the project was started and it was pressure to get it done. And so taking a step back, as you mentioned, Kelly, and putting it into the plan, like put it into the plan. And as you said, Paul, just even like in the emails, right? Some like 20% of people probably read status updates, if that, right? But if people can see that this is something that's on there that they can look forward to, at least to see their own name, I think that makes a great idea to do. And then what you said, Paul, about we don't have authority, I like that, because almost every company I've worked with has that competency of influencing without authority, and that's what we do have is influence. And so using that influence to help the project as well.
Yeah, you can kind of under the radar coach your sponsor, and say, hey, would you mind sending out a note to the team periodically? And I think that most people would be open to doing that. And if not, at least you asked and made it apparent that this is really important to help with the momentum and the morale of the team.
Right. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hopefully we'll hear back from you in a couple of months and you'll tell us that you're applying these lessons and it's working out for you in the future. So we do hope to hear from you, Dina.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your project hell with us and with our listeners today. So we'd love to hear from you. And I think it's time to close out, Paul, for this 20 minutes.
It is time to wrap up this episode of My Project Hell. And I hope everyone enjoyed the show. I know Kelly and I really do have a lot of fun, and we hope you did too. You can catch the replays on My Project Hell on YouTube. Also, check out our websites. As I mentioned, there are templates that Kelly has on her website, same over on ours. If you do want, check out the 30-minute free call to have questions that you have specifically talked about and answered.
Come back and join us in a couple weeks. We're going to have a special guest on the program. And Little reminder for those of you who are with us today, there'll be a quick survey at the end of the episode. And for those who aren't, drop us an email at myprojecthell@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you all. Have fun.